As for the X-ray protection for the public, by the way, are those people who are not involved in radiation. They are not dentists, they are not patients. They are either they accompany their patients or come, like the cleaning staff in your clinic, secretarial staff, and so on. However, those know, but those who don't know to come to the clinic, you should put warning or informative signals to indicate the hazardous X-ray. Tell them that there is an X-ray machine here, there is X-ray being generated or done, so on. Patients should be seated away from the X-ray rooms because there is no need for their presence near the X-ray rooms. And patients are not allowed to wait in corridors close or next to the X-ray rooms. So keep them away. The safest distance is 2 meters plus. As long as they are 2 meters away from radiation, they are safe. Okay. I think we are familiar with these signs. This is the general sign of ionizing radiation, whether gamma or X-ray, and this you just put it close to your X-ray machine or in the area and the vicinity of radiation. And when there is X-ray being generated, okay, this is what is called as the controlled area, and this sign means that nobody should get inside the X-ray room except the patient. Okay, here there is a suspicion of X-ray being the X-ray source over here, but when there is X-ray generation, this sign should be clearly seen so that nobody gets into the X-ray examination. Now I want you to have a look at this diagram. This diagram represents the open-ended cylindrical cone. As we said, this is an open-ended cone. Okay, the diameter here should be 6 to 7 centimeters. Okay, this is an open-ended lead-lined cylindrical cones. In the older times, when I was a student, we used to work with machines that they have pointed plastic cones. These are obsolete now. They should never be used. Why? Here, the X-ray, when it emerges from the target, it will pass all the way here. It will start to interact with the inner surface of the PID. We know that X-ray interacts with any material, regardless of the material. It will start to ionize it, and ionization will lead to X-ray generation. So actually the cone here, the inside of the cone, when it is struck by photons generated from the target, it will start to form X-ray, and the X-ray here is scattered. You don't know where it's going. So these cylindrical cones, they should be lead-lined, so that if there is a chance of X-ray generation, during the passage of the X-ray, lead will absorb the X-ray that is generated. So at the end, you will have, by the action of the collimator, you will have an X-ray diameter 7 centimeter that will cover the patient's head. On the other hand, here these are made of plastic. When the X-ray is generated from the target, it will travel the space here. It will interact from the inside of the cone, and then, plus to make things worse, it will emerge through the closed end plastic. So it will start again by hitting the plastic. It will cause the plastic to emit X-ray. True, the energy of the originating X-ray scattered radiation is less than the original one, but this is X-ray. So you are going to expose your patient to two X-rays. One, the primary beam, and second, the scattered. The problem here is that you know where your primary beam is passing, but you never know where the scattering is. So there is overexposure. So these are obsolete. It should not be used. This is an example over here. This is the pointed plastic cone. At the earlier times, they used to do it on the assumption that this pointed cone, it will help the operator direct the beam. But now, if the X-ray is generated from here inside, it will travel all the way and it will start to interact with this plastic cone, and then it will start to spread, scattering all the way. While the new ones, see the X-ray, the target is located somewhere here. The distance from the target to the end is, as we said, 20 centimeters. Okay, so when the X-ray is generated, it will pass through the filter, it will pass through collimator, and this is lead line from the inside, so the all scattered radiation will be absorbed within the cone itself, and the X-ray will emerge from these 2 points reaching the patient, eliminating large amount of scattered radiation. So please go for this type of the open-ended cylindrical cones. As you can see here, when the X-ray is generated, it will start to produce scattering all around, so you don't know where this is heading. So it exposes the patient most of the skin without any benefit, of course, because it's not. However, it might increase the fog on the image noise now in the sensors. It increase the density, radiographic density of the image without any real benefit. Plus, of course, the hazardous effect on the patient. While in the open-ended cylindrical cones like this one, this is a 20 centimeter cone, the target is here. How do we know where the target is? Usually there is a small dot over here. You drop a line over here, and then it will be inside. This is where the anode is present. The X-ray is generated, okay, inside here. It passes through the window, through the oil. It will be filtrated, then it will pass through the filter, the 1.5 millimeter filter, then it will go through the collimator to be collimated into a rounded area, and then it will pass through the PID. This is from inside lead line, so when the X-ray passes, you are sure that there will be no scattered radiation. Of course, you have to use the highest speed film and film holders and the beam aligning devices. As we said, avoid retakes, use lead aprons, use thyroid collars, and we've talked about the X-ray during pregnancy. No need to talk about it again here. You can refer back to the previous videos. Never hold the film, never hold the tube, never hold the never stand in the path of the primary beam, and always stand 2 meters from the X-ray beam behind the patient's head. I will show you now where to stand. If you don't have a distance of 2 meters, go by a barrier, lead barrier of 2 millimeter thickness with a leaded window, so that you can watch your patient through the lead. This is a case of 2 dentists who kept taking X-rays for their patients all their training or their practicing time. They ended up with squamous cell carcinomas of the finger. So please, this practice of holding films for or sensors for your patients, stop it. Go for sensor holders. Different types of portable barriers. See, this is one. It comes with wheels so that you can move them if you don't use them, and then you can move them, stand behind them. This is sandwiched, and in between there is 2 millimeter of thickness lead sheet, and this is leaded glass, so that you can watch your patient. Depends. This is a big lead window. This is a smaller one. This one is a whole leaded glass, so you can see the patient. So it comes in different size. Choose the one which you like. It will save you the headache of being exposed to radiation. Rectangular collimators. This is a rectangular collimator. The idea here, I will show you. Either it comes with a rectangular collimator instead of this one, or there is add-ons. So there is a circular adapter here. You can put it on the circular PID, okay, and you end up with the rectangular collimator, and this is the sensor holder. This is beautiful actually, because you are going to reduce the exposure, and you will guarantee as well that there is no exposure of skin tissues larger than the film. I will show you how. These are two types. This is a long cone, as we said. This is 40 centimeters, rectangular PID. This is a short cone, circular PID, and this is a long cone, 40 centimeters, circular PID. Different in the market. The common ones are the 20 centimeters. These give you best image sharpness, but you have to increase the exposure time to compensate for the energy loss or the quantity of the X-ray photons being lost into this long period, long distance. Two examples. This is the circular collimator, as you can see over here. We said that this distance is 7 centimeters. Now, in this 7 centimeters, okay, this is the circular collimator, and this is the size of the film. What's happening here actually, you see this lined area? You are exposing your patients, all this area, actually there is no sensor to cover, to capture the X-ray. So what you're doing in the circular collimator, all this area exposes the skin of the patient, right? But your real film size is only here. So all this area actually is unnecessary exposure to your patient. Why? So instead of using a circular collimator, you're going to use a rectangular collimator, which is slightly larger than the size of the sensor. So you're going to eliminate all this, because there is no film here to register the image. However, because of the reduction of the size, the chances of concat increases, okay? Because here you have a high margin of error, low margin of error, because the cone is larger than the sensor. But if you're going to reduce the sensor size to slightly larger than the sensor itself, then the chances of concatting increases. So what you do in this case, your solution is to go for a sensor holder, because this will guarantee, this will align exactly. If you go back to the previous, see, it will align the sensor. This is the tooth over here, sensor over here, and there is no chance of concatting. Okay. And these are, as you can see here, long cylindrical cones, short cylindrical cones, long rectangular cones, short rectangular cones. These are detachable. It comes with a screw. You can attach it to the. Now, where to stand? If this is the patient, okay, if this is the patient's head and you're doing an X-ray for the central incisor, okay, X-ray is coming from this direction. Now remember, I go back. X-ray, when it interacts with any material, it will cause this material to be ionized. Ionization is followed by X-ray emission. If the X-ray interacts with air will start to emit scattered secondary radiation. By the way, this is the primary beam. Any other radiation that originates from the interaction of the primary beam with any other material is called the scattered or secondary radiation. The bad thing about secondary radiation, it is that you don't know where it's going, okay? Because it's not the primary beam. So what happens here is that the X-ray is coming from the X-ray head, okay? It will start to interact with air, causing scattered radiation, and then it will reach to the patient's head. The patient's head, the cells in the patient's head will be ionized by the effect of photons, and the patient's head will start to emit radiation. So if I am a patient, I'm doing a central incisor, my head will start to be ionized by the X-ray beam, and it will start to emit X radiation, and this, of course, as we call it, scattered. You don't know where it is going. So if you're standing here, this is the operator, if you're standing here in this area in front of the patient, you will receive the scattered radiation. So what to do? You shift your position behind the patient's head, so that if this is the primary beam, behind the patient's head it's 180 degrees, right? You draw a perpendicular line on the 180, and you stand at an area between 90 and 135. 190. You bisect this angle, so you stand at this area between 90 and 135. Why should you stand here? Because the scattered radiation which has originated in the patient's head will be absorbed by the patient's head, so you will get no scattered radiation. Where to stand here, the farther you go away here, the better for you. But if you stand here, very close proximity, this is what happens with most of our dentists. They hold the film and they stand just next to the X-ray machine, so they will receive the scattered radiation from the patient's head. Please don't do this. If you are going, and I don't advise this, you're going to hold the film for the patient, don't stand next to just close to the X-ray machine. Go behind the patient's head and stand there. At least you will save yourselves from receiving the scattered radiation. If you're doing a premolar, this is the premolar, okay? Standing next to the X-ray machine in front of the patient you will receive scattered radiation. Go behind the patient's head at an angle between 90 and 135. So the scattered which has resulted from the patient's head will be received by the patient's head. Hopefully you're safe. However, I don't advise this unless you keep a distance. Keeping a distance, even if you're standing here, you go more than 2 meters, you're safe. Okay? This is a diagram. X-ray, 6 feet is 180 centimeters. Don't stand here, please. This is the 90. Stand at this area, behind the patient's head. Okay? Another diagram. If you're doing the molars, stand here. Don't stand here next to the X-ray machine. The same for the central incisors. This is a dangerous area for you. Stand behind the patient's head. Now, the ideal thing is that, as we said, you stand behind a barrier with a leaded window so that you can watch your patient. Now, if you notice, all X-ray machines, they have coiled wires, so that you can take the wire, it reaches up to 3 meters. Okay, so you can take your exposure switch and stand wherever you like, either 2 meters, 2+ meters, or you stand behind a barrier. Why is this? See, in winter time, if you feel cold, you sit close to the heat source. Now, if you sit for heat source, you just warm up your hands. After a while, your hands will become warm. What will you do? You will just remove your hands away from the heat. If you remove your hands away from the heat, the amount of heat will be less. Quantity of heat will be less. Why is this? Because heat, sound, infrared, all these, they are electromagnetic in nature, and they all follow the inverse square law, which states that the intensity of radiation, whether it's sound or light, is inversely proportional to the square of distance from the source of radiation. What does this mean? This is the source of radiation. If you stand like 2 meters away from the radiation, you are going to receive less by the square of the distance, which is known as the inverse square law. Inverse square law states that the intensity or the quantity of X-ray or any electromagnetic radiation is inversely proportional to the square of distance from the source of radiation. And this is how it is presented. So the more you are away from source of radiation, the lesser the amount or the quantity of radiation emitted by square, not square the distance. This is why we keep distance. If we keep a 2 meter distance from our X-ray machine, which operates at 60 to 70 kV, then we are safe. We will not get any radiation. If you keep more distance, this is even safer. This is a representation. This is the patient, X-ray source. This is the patient. If you are 2 meters, you are safe. If you are less than 2 meters, then you are in danger of being exposed to scattered radiation. Another diagram you can see here. This is the machine, and this is the patient. Now, if you stand in less than 2 meters, you are exposed to scattered radiation. But if you don't have a distance, stand behind a leaded barrier, then you're safe. All the scattering here will be absorbed by this 2 millimeter thickness of lead. The ideal thing is that you have your X-ray machine in a leaded room, and then you watch your patient through a leaded glass. Okay? If you are inside the room, of course you will be exposed to scattered radiation. So what you do, you and any person who gets inside the room. That's why nobody should be inside the room during exposure. Everybody out of this room, and only you will watch your patient through a leaded glass. And the exposure switch is extended outside the room so that you can expose the radiation, the process. Once you're done, you open the door and continue your work. Another diagram where to stand. Always stand in an area of 2 meters. This is the patient. Wherever you stand in a 2 meter radius from the patient, you are safe. You will not receive any scattered radiation. If you stand less than 2 meters, you will be exposed to scattered radiation. Another diagram, X-ray and the patient inside. You're safe as long as you are keeping a distance according to the inverse square law, and this is, in our case, is 2 meters. Lead barrier, of course, is the ultimate thing. It saves you space and it gives you the maximum protection. And this is the leaded wall room. This is the ideal thing. For the public, you must use warning and informative signals. Patients should be seated away from the X-ray rooms, and patients, as we said, are not allowed to wait. Or anybody who's in the clinic, keep them away from the X-ray room. Let them know that there is source of radiation, and don't let them in as long as there is X-ray exposure. And if they are seated, then if this is the X-ray room, these are restricted areas. Nobody here. Keep them in the distance. You, your staff, everybody, children, any accompanying patients, and the secretarial people are away from the X-ray room at least 2 meters plus. There is no need for them to stand in this area. Okay, thank you very much.